I love pizza. Welcome, brave souls, to the realm of pizza horror delivery tales. Take a seat, grab a slice, if you dare, and prepare yourself for a journey into the unknown. In this spine-tingling collection of stories, you'll join me on the front lines of late-night pizza deliveries, where every darkened doorstep holds the promise of adventure, danger, and maybe even a sprinkle of madness. So, dear listener, get ready to dive deep into the strange and unsettling encounters that lurk just beyond the glow of streetlights. But remember, once you step into the world of pizza horror deliveries, there's no turning back. Now, let the tales begin. This video may contains moderate jump scares and is not recommended for people that are easily scared. Additionally, if you dislike or find discomfort in being alone in a dark room or have claustrophobia, this is also not recommended. But at the same time, you could enjoy this fears if you choose. The pictures in this video are not real pictures. It's just used for imagination purposes. Please subscribe, like, and share to your coward friends. I'll always remember that night at the pizza shop where I was employed, just as we were gearing up to shut down and I was preparing to leave. The moment came when the phone rang. Since I was the only one manning the counter that evening, handling calls was up to me. Answering the phone, I was met with utter silence, leading me to disconnect after a brief wait. Barely a minute had passed when the phone rang once more. I answered, only to be greeted by silence again. Just as I was about to disconnect, very weak and cold voice of an elderly lady emerged, requesting a regular pizza for delivery. Despite maintaining my composure on the call, internally, I was in turmoil, eager to finish my shift and head home. I notified my manager of the delivery request, and he insisted I handle it. Initially irritated, I soon recognized the potential for a decent tip, particularly as elderly customers often tip well. Convincing myself to proceed, after jotting down her address and assuring her of the impending delivery, though she had prematurely ended the call, which I found impolite, I shrugged it off and shouted for a regular pizza from the chef. My manager then mentioned that I could head home post-delivery since the shop would be closed, so shortly before 10, I hopped into my car, entering the address into the navigation system. The destination was 7 miles away, in a quieter part of town, leading me to a quaint single-story home on a deserted street. Carrying the pizza, I approached and rang the bell, noticing the absence of any indoor lighting. I was hoping the address was correct as I pressed the bell once more, yet no response came. I was about to give up when I turned my head and saw somebody standing at the window. I got a little freaked out and backed up at first, but I eventually got closer to the window to see the person. It was an old woman, probably in her late 70s. She was just staring at me with a blank expression. I yelled to her through the glist that I had her pizza. She didn't react to what I said, so I screamed it louder. A big smile ran across her face. Not a pleasant, genuine smile. There was a smile that sent chills down my spine. I still remember that exact face she made through the window. I decided that I was freaked out enough and got back to my car and set the pizza in the passenger seat. Needing to inform my manager about the encounter, I sent him a brief message before starting the vehicle, eager to distance myself. As I was about to drive off, I caught one last glimpse of her, now standing ominously at my car's side window, mirroring the chilling stare from before. Hastily, I shifted into drive and sped away, never once glancing back. After that night, my manager no longer asked me to make any late-night deliveries. This incident unfolded 4 years back when I was still attending high school. My task was to complete the final delivery of my shift. I got into my vehicle, a 1999 Camry, which was ideally suited for delivering pizzas. I entered the delivery address into my phone's GPS. Living upstate in a rural area meant that all pizza deliveries entailed lengthy drives. The sun was beginning to set, indicating it was around 7 in the evening. After navigating through forests and dirt tracks for about 15 minutes, my GPS announced my arrival. Before me stood an aged, quaint cottage by the lake, constructed almost entirely of wood, isolated in the midst of an expansive forest. The surrounding grass was wildly overgrown, reaching nearly knee height. But such sights were familiar to me, so it barely registered. Approaching the front door with the pizza, I found no one to greet me. Thus, I knocked forcefully. Within seconds, I could hear the sound of footsteps on wood inside the house. Approaching the door, then coming to a halt, a sense of unease began to wash over me, amplified by the realization there was a peephole on the door. "It's the pizza guy," I announced. A muffled, gruff voice from the other side instructed me to take the pizza to the back. Something about this didn't sit right with me. "Are you sure, sir?" I hesitated, but received no reply. The continued silence from behind the door suggested the person was still observing me. I nearly retreated to my car, but the memory of my boss's displeasure from a previous incident kept me from doing so. Reluctantly, I made my way through the tall grass to the house's rear. There, I found a shed and a small patio, complete with a table and 4 chairs. One chair, turned away from me, seemed to be occupied. "Excuse me," I ventured, but there was no response. I raised my voice. "Excuse me." But before I could continue, a voice from behind me chimed, "Over here." I spun around to see a man peeking from around the house's corner, wearing a disturbing smile. "Come over here, I want to show you something," he said. Panicked, I dashed around the house in the opposite direction, inexplicably clutching the pizza, and scrambled into my car. I floored it back towards the pizzeria. Partway there, I pulled over to call the police. Later, they informed me that the house had appeared uninhabited for some time. A few days after that terrifying encounter, I resigned from my delivery job. What might have transpired had I approached that man remains a haunting mystery, but part of me still wishes I had turned to see who or what was sitting in that chair on the patio. During one of my late-night delivery shifts, I was navigating the secluded roads of the Poconos, an area known for its rural and wooded landscapes. This particular night was cloaked in darkness and fog, adding an eerie feel to the shortcut through the forest I often used to reach town. Suddenly, a figure burst from the bushes onto the road, causing me to slam on the brakes, but not before feeling the grim bump and thud indicating I had hit the person. Shocked and panicked, I cursed under my breath, stepping out of the car to check on the individual. It was a man, clad in a black hoodie, lying motionless beside my tire. Confusion and fear overtook me as I pondered why he was out here in the middle of nowhere and why he had leapt in front of my vehicle. As I was grappling with the situation, a distant scream pierced the silence from the woods on my left, desperate and chilling. Torn, I glanced at the motionless figure before deciding foolishly to venture into the woods in search of the source. Silence hung heavily, punctuated only by the sounds of nocturnal animals, as I called out, hoping for a response. Suddenly, a sound of footsteps crunching leaves spun me around, where despite the darkness and fog, I discerned the outline of someone lurking behind a tree opposite me. Fear gripped me, propelling me back to my car, constantly looking over my shoulder for pursuit. To my alarm, the man I had hit was no longer there. Without hesitation, I drove off, my heart pounding throughout the journey, yet I managed to complete the pizza delivery. Upon arrival at the destination, a middle-aged woman greeted me. After our transaction, her gaze shifted past me, prompting her to inquire if delivery drivers were accompanied by partners now. Confused, I turned to see someone seated in the back of my car, a wave of dread washing over me. Using the woman's phone, I called the police, but by the time they arrived, the mysterious passenger had vanished. What haunts me the most about this harrowing experience is the discovery the police made. A blood-stained knife on my car floor, left where the man had been hiding. This memory torments me daily. A chilling reminder of how perilously close I came to a potentially fatal outcome had I not opted to continue with the delivery. I began when I was 16 years old in a town outside of a big city. At first, I worked with the cook in the kitchen and helped clean the place for 2 months. After some time, my boss told me that the main delivery boy's days off were. When asked if I would deliver, I said yes, of course. But then, the delivery boy quit as he was leaving this house with a pizza. With tears in his eyes, He looked like he had been through a terrible event. He went into my boss's office and fought with him for about 15 minutes. When he came out, he wished him luck and told me he was leaving. When I asked him why, he said it was just a bad job. He then gave me a pat on the back and left. Though I knew it wasn't just a bad job, I didn't give it much thought. I didn't see him again after that. So I was the delivery boy for a few weeks until they could find someone else to do it. After about 2 weeks of doing it, they did find someone else to do it. My boss gave me the address of a house, so I used GPS as normal and drove over to watch the sunset. I was hoping it would only take 2 minutes so I could get home. Unfortunately, it was in a rural part of town where houses are only about a quarter-mile apart. I pulled up in front of the 2-story house and stared at it. The lawn wasn't mowed. There were dead trees and an old porch with milk chairs, flower pots, and tables. It just looked like it had been left empty, but I got out and knocked on the door anyway. I was hoping my boss gave me the wrong address or something so I could leave right away. Suddenly, the door lock started to shake, and the door opened. It was an old woman, probably around 70 years old, with white hair, missing teeth, and a very skinny, short frame. Her eyes were staring at me, which really scared me. I thought that if I was nice, everything would be fine, since it was pepperoni pizza, ma'am. With a hoarse voice as if she had a sore throat. Okay, here you go. I gave her the pizza, but she just looked at it and didn't take it. She then went to get her bag. Did you come with someone else? I stopped moving and quickly looked up at her. She was still staring at me, and that question scared me a lot. I said, no. Where's the other one? He sucked on me the last time he came back and ran off. I didn't understand why he quit a few weeks ago. I think she looked for money in her purse for about a minute, which seemed like the longest minute ever. With her hands in her purse, she stopped and looked at me. Not with surprise or confusion in her eyes, but as if she was really thinking about something. I knew she had something in her right hand inside the bag, but I couldn't see it. At this point, I started to worry that it might be pepper spray, a knife, or even a gun. I didn't understand why it took her so long to get $10 out of her purse. Then I saw the shadow of a man walking up to the door. Suddenly, I heard footsteps stepping on the leaves to my left next to the porch, and a deep voice saying, "Hey." I turned around and saw the head of a middle-aged man with an angry look emerging over the porch. That's when I knew I had had enough. I quickly ran to my car, put the pizza in it, turned it on, and drove off. It was dark, so I didn't look back as I drove away. It cost me money to lie and pay for the pizza myself, but it was worth it the day I quit. When I told my boss what happened that night, he was shocked and asked me why I hadn't told him before. He said Jamis told him that he didn't pay attention to her and just left the room. Then my boss called the police to look into the sketchy situation and told me I could leave. About 2 days later, he called back to say that the house had been registered as foreclosed for over a year and that they found 3 people living there when they broke in, 2 men and the old woman I met. They were arrested, but he didn't say anything else. I'm still traumatized, and I don't know what would have happened if I had waited. So there you have it, folks. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe for more stories.